Hi, we're working on the fuel system today. Here's the bottom drain of the fuel tank. Engine is up here, transmission, engine back there. They used to run a steel line with a valve right here, straight up through that notch that's cut out there, up all the way to the top, then they went along the top of the frame, then dropped down into the fuel filters. And I was gonna follow that route again, but the problem is the jack that we have here is so big, there's no room for that line to go up and over. So I'm gonna put a union here. I've got a 90 street union. Then I'll have the valve here to turn on and off so you can shut your fuel off if you're doing something up here. Then it'll go up 90 over across the top of this. And then we're gonna switch to a hydraulic line over, up, and over to feed the fuel system. Because it's flexible, it's nice, it's braided in metal, and it's way overkill. And it's a lot nicer than dealing with a steel line. So that's the plan. Let's put some stuff together. Okay, let's try that. Yep, I think that'll work. The union down there. Perfect. Okay, let's take it off and paint it, and then we'll figure out a hydraulic hose to run to the top. I almost installed a lift pump, still might do it. The injection pump on these KTTAs, KTA Cummins, have a gear-driven fuel pump that does create quite a bit of suction. Buds didn't run lift pumps, but a lift pump does help keep pressure. If you ever have an issue with bleed back and trying to prime the system, they're nice there, but it's just another system you gotta put on, more wiring you gotta do. I don't know, but I can install it if we need it because there's room here. Now these fuel tanks don't have an electric fuel sender, tank level sender to the cab. You go off of a sight glass or a tube that goes here, runs up there, plugs up there. And that's how we just ran them. They're 500-gallon tanks, or it's a 500-gallon total capacity. You just get out and occasionally look out and see how much fuel you got. Originally, Bud had these little tiny, I don't know what that is, 1/8" line, and I didn't like it, so I'm swapping them out to, I think, a 1/4. That'll be a little bit bigger rubber hose on there. And that way it doesn't have as much chance of getting plugged up with particles in your fuel, because that bottom one, rust, you know, whatever it may be, can get plugged up. So let's swap it over. Definitely don't want that. I actually pulled it over the top of that. That's better.
Guess what time it is? Time to use the lathe. So I'm starting to work on the cab, switching gears. There's tons of stuff for me to do on that tractor, but we got to get this cab together. So I need to get this done. So what I'm going to do is, I got done re-welding all this dash together, and it looks pretty good so far. But what I need to do is make vents. So these vents here, I had a 2004 Subaru WRX. That thing was awesome. And it had these vents in it. And I loved these vents because you can turn them and twist them and they go all sorts of ways. So I was like, oh, I like them so much, I'll put them in one bud. So I put these exact ones in their other bud and we love it. So why not put it in this one? But that means I got to make some pieces on the lathe to go over these little vents. Grind off some of the plastic, modify a little bit, and shim shim alabim, we've got some vents on a dash. I think that's how you say it, right? But these right here, I think these are 3 inch, or they're 3.5. So outside diameter is 4 inch. Inside diameter is 3.25. But these work perfect. I mean, I don't have much room to play with it, but they'll work perfect for it. So I'll take this one, cut 4 pieces out of it, so I can make 4 pieces, or 4 vents, and then I gotta cut the insert for it. So yeah, I got some work to do. So let's use the lathe. All right, I think what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna remove these jaws, because these jaws here won't go wide enough to clamp on the outside. I wanna clamp on the outside of that thing. So if I take these ones out and grab a different set, I can clamp on the outside better. There we go. And here's these ones. All right, so They're numbered. And in these ones, you got to get them into the right series because they have different cuts on them. So, number 1, voila, rotate it. Okay, and this one's 2. Okay, right to there. And then we got 3. Make that nice and tight. Now what I gotta do is I gotta measure and make equal cuts. So I get 4 out of that.
Don't mind the background noise. This tractor has 2 fuel tanks. One here and one here. And a couple things happen with dual fuel tanks you have to think about. One, you're sucking fuel from one tank, which is this. That's the master primary tank. It pulls from the bottom down there. There's a cross or a square tubing piece that goes through right across right there to this tank. So with both tanks full, it's slowly gonna pull fuel from that side over to this side. The thing is, you're gonna create a vacuum, so you gotta have a vent. So as you're filling the tank, this cap's off, it's in, it's filling, fuel's flowing down, it's gonna try to flow into this tank, but unless you pull this cap off and let it vent out, there's gonna be a pressure chamber in there and the fuel's not gonna go in there. So what they have is a little tiny hole right here and a little tiny hole right there. They run up to a filter like this, you put it on the top, and that way air can flow between the 2 tanks as you're filling or drawing. The problem is, sorry, ignore the background noise. There are such tiny little holes that when you're running a 2-inch pump of fuel into this tank's gonna fill faster than that tank can bleed the air out through that little teeny hole. So what we've had to always do is you go over here, pull the the cap off the other side to let it vent out, so that way they fill evenly at the same time. And I'm not doing that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm opening this little, I don't know what it was, not even a 3/8. It was tiny. Maybe that's a 3/8 hole. It's pretty small. Could be quarter. And I'm bumping it up to 1/2 inch. And we're gonna run a 1/2 inch pipe. So I'm gonna drill it with the mag drill here. This thing's a beast. I think I've got it mocked up to work here. That bit is the only one I can find that was close to size, so we're gonna do it. And then we'll put a 1/2 inch pipe in there. We're gonna mount this vent on this side over here, and then I'll run a small line across over to tie into that side. So let's get this thing ripping. See if we can cut this. Well, until next time, Mag Drill. Been awesome so far. Okay, tanks are connected, filters in line. I gotta make a bracket and then button that up so that hose is tight. But that's good. Now I just gotta finish running the fuel line up to the filters, then to the injection pump. So let's keep going. Just wanna rant for a second here. Pet peeve of mine. Companies, I know you love to put stickers and tags on your products, and you probably make, excellent product. Stop putting stuff with such crazy adhesive on here. That goes for windows, that goes for new toolboxes, whatever it may be. They throw these dumb stickers on here and you can't get them off, and I gotta paint this. So what do I have to do? I literally have to use a grinder or this and try to, I tried a razor blade, I tried a decal remover. So there's my rant. Stop doing it. Find a different adhesive. This happens so often. Just wasting time trying to get your sticker off here so I can paint this too. All right, rant over. Back to work. So now when it comes time to paint this, guess what you're gonna see? a faint little texture there. Unless I lightly grind the entire tube down to match, which I'm not gonna do. So there's gonna be a line. Deal with it. Wait, you know, I guess I could have thrown this in a fire. That's what I should have done. I should have burnt it off. Torch. That would have worked. All right, next time we'll do that. So here's the fuel filter system. This just bolts to the side of the engine. The injection pump sits right above here. Looks like it says out right here, in right there. So clearly this goes to the injection pump. This is the end line. But the way the line comes in, I think, I want to see if I can reverse this. I don't know if I can, but if I could flip it, I'd rather have this be the input and this come out, because then it can just curl right up and go into the injection pump, which sits right here. So I might see if I can reverse this. As long as it's not too tight to the frame to take the filters off. I'm gonna take this twist valve off. You just don't know how old it is, if it works. Replace that, get a a 90-degree ball valve, put that on there. That way you can shut the fuel off. You need to take the filters off, change it, and keep the fuel in your injection system. So definitely getting rid of this hose too. We'll get a new hose. Don't care about those filters. I got new ones coming. Okay, so we got an O-ring on that fitting, so I'll save that. This one, see if we can take this one off. Want to lift it up a little bit? Or is that... Oh, okay. That's pretty close to the top.
That's the way you do it.
Really? You don't leave a little bit more of a bubble
actually,
top there?
Somebody taught me wrong.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll stick with that. Oh, that's going to hold fuel. Always blow them out before you put them on. Just never know what'll be hiding in there. There we go. Oh, come on. Almost got it. There you go. All right, so fuel supply runs along the frame all the way down, comes up right there. The fuel filter assembly goes through, runs up into the injection pump, goes through the whole rail system. Then the what do you call it, the bypass or the return comes off right here, goes over, goes back into the original tank that has started it. That tank is connected to the breather through that lane, to that tank with the breather on it. And the fuel sight glass is on. So, besides the valves being turned off and not having the new fuel filters on, the fuel system on this thing is ready. But I'm sure you guys noticed when I was drilling it out, you probably thought, well, filings are falling inside that tank. Yeah, so I'm still gonna wash the tanks out. We still gotta wash the hydraulic tanks out. We're gonna give a very thorough wash, probably put a magnet down in there, swirl it around. That side's not as critical because those filings have to somehow travel all the way from there through the square tube, all the way over to here, and then back up and around and get through the filter. So not worried about that. But still, we're washing the tanks before we put fuel in this thing. But I think fuel's done, unless we find some leaks when we put some pressure to it.
I went ahead and just made the first one just to make sure I got it right before I make the second one. So this is what it's going to turn out to be like. You're going to have it insert like that. And you'll have 4 bolts on each corner, and then, yeah, that should look pretty good. I think that's going to turn out very well. So the step that I have to do, and I wanted to bore it out with the boring bar on my end mill, but I didn't have the right boring bar. And so then the only way for me to really do this is use a hole saw like this. But the problem is it cuts it out just a tiny, tiny bit bigger than what those little rings that I made. But that's okay. It's still gonna work just fine. It's just a tiny bit bigger. And I mean, it's not to where I like it, but what can you do? So yeah, anyways, let's go ahead and make another one. Grab one of these rings for a reference. And the plan is to chop the holes out and then tack weld these things in and grind them all up and clean them up really good, and then move on to the next step. All right, I need to make a bracket on the back side of these to secure these so they don't come out, and then I need to drill four holes obviously, but boy, that looks pretty good. Yeah, I think it'll work.
Let's go take a look what happened last night. It wasn't a gigantic rain, but we got, oh, I don't know, a little over 4/10. This is our worst winter wheat field, conveniently right next to my house, so I look at it every time I drive home. But it was lentils last year. The lentil crop was a failure, but there wasn't much moisture in the ground. And now this winter wheat crop, it's hurting too. Look how much leaves have died off there, but it's still got life to it. I mean, it's gonna grow. So this 4/10 will definitely, 4/10 of an inch, will perk it up. The yield potential for this crop is dropped drastically. It's gonna be short now. It's the plant has officially said, I'm gonna go in drought mode. So it's not gonna be real tall, which is probably a good thing because it's probably gonna be a drier year. But it still has potential to make some bushels. So we'll see how it goes. If we didn't get that rain yesterday, there's nothing in the forecast for the next 10 days. It would have been absolutely, this would have been completely zeroed out. It would have absolutely been a loss. So, I mean, that rain yesterday saved it. Our spring crops too, oh, they were starting to get dry, and that 4/10 is just gonna wake them up again too, give them another shot in the arm. And then we have other winter wheat that looks like this right here. This is a ditch. Grab one of these. See how tall that winter wheat plant is? That there is what this should look like right here, to give you perspective. See what I mean? Look at the height difference here. That is what this whole field should look like. That's give you a reference of what a little bit of more water will do. You can't, I mean, that's the thing is there's so many snake oils and fertilizers and, oh, use a disc drill. You should do this. You should use a strip header or stripper header and you know, change the spacing and all these different things. And I'll tell you what right now, guys, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't have water, none of that's gonna get you anywhere. Gotta have water, and it hasn't happened. So It'll come eventually, but it's amazing. Amazing how much a little bit of water can make such a difference. And then if you get the water, all of a sudden, all those things start to make sense because the plant is actually going to live and can utilize it. So, though I will say, a disc drill and a stripper header probably would help a little bit of stubble and snow reserves during the winter. So, I mean, that would definitely be a benefit. I'm not saying it wouldn't work at all. I'm just saying, though, you got to get more than 1,500ths of rain within 2 months of seeing your crop. This has got to happen. So again, praise the Lord. I'm happy. 4/10. That's the biggest rain we've had in like 9 months or 8 months or something like that. So yes, get another one in a week and a half, another 4/10, another 4/10, another 4/10, another 4/10. You know, we'll have a pretty good crop. As sad as that sounds, it's very doable. So let's pray for it.